Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 29 of the Dreams Are Real podcast. I'm Dan McPherson, and my job and the purpose of this podcast is to share inspirational stories and powerful tools that make it easier to follow your dreams. Achieving dreams is hard work, and it takes time. The work has to be done, but how long it takes can vary greatly depending upon the support you have. For info about Leaders Must Lead's coaching programs and how we may be able to help you move faster, visit leadersmustlead.com or email dmcpherson@leadersmustlead.com. Our guest today is Rick Coughlin. Rick is a technology integration specialist, a performing musician, and the co-founder and CEO of Grove Studios, a 24/7 practice space for musicians located in Ypsilanti, Michigan. I was introduced to Rick a few years ago by mutual friend and episode 11 guest Steph Belcher. He's not only a great guy, but also a humble, growing leader with a heart to affordably solve some of the world's biggest problems that musicians are facing and to allow them the space to freely move and create the soundtrack of our lives. Our conversation ranges from Rick's historical connections to yodeling, yes, yodeling, to his history as a musician, the founding of Grove, the team's vision for the future, and much more. For more info about Rick Coughlin and Grove Studios, please visit grovestudios.space or follow Rick Coughlin on Facebook and Instagram. To learn more about our podcast and for tons of behind-the-scenes info, search for the Dreams Are Real podcast group on Facebook and join our growing community. And now, here's my conversation with Rick Coughlin. Welcome to the Dreams Are Real podcast, where we aim to ignite the fire that allows you to unleash your greatest potential. I'm your host, Dan McPherson, and I'm on a mission to help you own your story on the way to building your ideal life. The first step toward achieving your dreams is to overcome the momentum of zero. Take a step and let that motion dispel the emotions of fear, worry, or self-doubt. No matter where you are in your life or your career, only you can make that choice. The good news, you've got this. Why? Because dreams are real. Let's dive in. Welcome to the Dreams Are Real podcast. I'm your host, Dan McPherson. Today, we have a good friend of mine as a guest who is also doing great good in the world of music, rehearsal spaces, and just bringing his heart to the world in some wonderful ways as well. He is a technology integration specialist. He is the co-founder and CEO of Grove Studios, a music rehearsal space that is currently located in Ypsilanti, Michigan, but will soon be known worldwide. He and his team are on a wonderful escalating ride of joy in the world of entrepreneurship. Rick, it's great to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is super fun. I'm excited to chat.
As am I, and I'm excited to hear your story. Now, I shared here how I would introduce you, this technology integration specialist, the co-founder and CEO. Those are all highfalutin terms. When other people ask you what you do, how do you respond?
Well, I do a lot of things. I like to keep things interesting. There's the work that I do, both professionally. And then, of course, there's just the things I do as a human being. So what do? I try to help people. I like to help people achieve what they're trying to achieve. And that goes for my work as an integration specialist in the technology world, in public education. I'm a support person. So that looks like sometimes therapy when it comes to technology, and people get very frustrated with technology. Are you a technology therapist? Yeah, a little bit. That's probably accurate. And I think if you ask any of the people that I work with on a daily basis, I play that role. Let's just say that technology therapy in a way, because technology can not work properly. And I usually know how to get around and do workarounds. And I'm more of the end user support kind of person. I'm not super technical, but I know enough to be dangerous. So that's that. And, outside of that, I was an educator for 10 years, and I always enjoyed working with young people, because I do believe that young people they are the future. And so it's our job as older folks to, help steward the next generation. They are important in the world. And so I like working with them and supporting them to achieve what they want to achieve.
So technology therapist, educator, and
well, musician. And, in the music world, I do somewhat of the same thing in my work with Grove Studios, supporting up and coming artists as they work to achieve their dreams.
Beautiful thing. And you're doing great work. I have enjoyed working with you for the last couple of years and seeing the growth of Grove, the connection of your team, the relationships that you guys have, and the heart that you do it all with. And I know a little bit about your background, that it maybe didn't start with all these fancy titles. What was the life of young Rick like? Where did you grow up, and what was that world looking like?
So I grew up in Denver, Colorado. That's where my parents chose to settle, and my mom was and still is a nurse, and my dad was a truck mechanic, and we lived in a humble home in Denver. I guess we in 1986 we moved to Michigan, and so that was a big transition. But I spent a lot of my time as a kid. My parents were avid skiers, and so we did a lot of skiing growing up. But
skiing in Michigan's a little different than skiing in Colorado, I think.
Yeah, it's not as good.
The lack of mountains has something to do with that.
Yeah. What they call a mountain here in Michigan is they're basically hills, but you can still get a little fun in Michigan. It's worth,
Well, in Michigan they do a lot of cross country skiing. Have you got out and done any of that?
Not a fan of cross country skiing. Much like growing up around boats, I'm not much of a fan of sailboats. I like to go fast.
So, fair enough. You like to go fast. All right.
I have the need for speed. Let's say that. So yeah, I don't know. As a kid, are we talking about the origin story? And dreams maybe that I had. I think I wanted to do all the typical things. I think, I don't know, maybe not typical. I didn't want to be a firefighter or a doctor or anything. I think marine biologist was a thing. I think lawyer was a thing. I think I certainly entertained acting early on. In kindergarten, and I still have this box with all of my things, and I revisit it from time to time. But I did find in kindergarten I wrote, whatever I do, I just want to be on a stage. And wow. I think that's really interesting because as I look back on my life, I've found myself on a lot of different stages. In stage two, as an educator, I mean, there's the sage on the stage thing, which we try to avoid in education now. You don't want a teacher just talking at you the whole time. But yeah, that was a thing. I think I wanted to, be on a stage. And so here I am, somewhat on a stage, various different ones.
And has your dream changed at all, or is it still be on a stage? Like that, as long as that's part of it, you're good to go.
No, I think it's morphed a little bit. I think the older that I've gotten, the less interested I am in being any sort of center of attention. And I found that really my passions lie in collaboration. So, in college and a band I played in, I was the front man, and that was a dream I had. I wanted to front a band and be the songwriter. And I did that for a while, and I realized I didn't want to do that. And
what made you realize that? Was it just a feeling, or was there something that really connected to you?
I just wasn't a very good front man, honestly. I mean,
not to rub salt in it, but in what way?
Well, I think people that are front men and women, and just front people in general, have, I don't know, they have a certain je ne sais quoi, as they say, and I think I never felt like I had or found my voice as a front person, and I just didn't enjoy the process of songwriting as much as I thought I did, and there's the amount of pressure, right, being the center of attention there. I found I just enjoyed the collaboration of being in a group and being in a band more, and co-writing and conceptualizing those songs with people. And I found that theme kind of carried out through other aspects of my life. And what I enjoyed about teaching was collaborations with students and collaborations with other educators. I didn't like just being the idea guy and fronting everything in that way. I think the collaboration and now as a co-founder and CEO of Grove Studios, I also enjoy the collaboration and some of the work that we do to make decisions to move the business forward. I don't rule with an iron fist,
Right.
It just doesn't work.
Is part of that a transition of trust, where you went from saying, I need to be in front as a little kid, and so often as a little kid, where we see the world through our own lens, that we're kind of the center of that world. And as we grow, we start to collaborate and understand that there are others there. And if we have great people to collaborate with, it's easy to trust. Or is it more just that, hey, look, I like being part of a team. I like being a contributor.
Yeah, I don't think I was distrustful, so to speak. I think it took me some time to recognize the importance of relationships and how that can move things forward, right? Really seeking other people's skill sets and how they contribute to the whole picture, and working on that together. I started to see things move forward better. And I always go back to the band scenario, because you really are, as a band, you're a business. As a band, you're somewhat married to a degree. I mean, there's a marriage of things that go on. And so you have to, make some compromises, and you have to rely on each other's skill sets, because nobody comes to the table with all the same skill sets. So yeah, I not mistrust, but recognition that relationships are probably the most important thing.
I agree with that sentiment entirely. You've talked about music already as a thread. Was that true from a really young age? Just like you said, hey, I want to be on a stage. Did you also know that music was a big part of your life from when you were really young, or was that more as a teenager or later?
Music was a part of my life in a huge way. My mom, she was on the level of becoming she was trained by a concert pianist. Had she chosen that route, she could have gone on to be a concert pianist. She's an amazing piano player. My Opa, he was Austrian. He played probably 7 different instruments. And so growing up partially with my grandparents for my formative years, music was a huge part of the house. My mom was playing, my Oma also played the zither, which is a German sort of harp style instrument. So yeah, music was just on, and heavily classical, lots of, traditional German music playing in the house all the time, and yodeling, lots of yodeling.
And do you currently do a lot of yodeling?
I don't, but it is one of the things that I would like to do in life, is learn how to.
Well, I'm just going to say, you have a moment right now where the world is listening, and you have an opportunity, if you want to put that skill out there, to yodel for us. I'm certain that the audience would love that moment.
I don't want to hurt anybody's ears by me attempting. What I do know is my opa and my great uncle. I have some records that they cut back in the 50s and 60s of yodeling. They're instructional records for yodeling. And so I do have the opportunity to go back, and it's amazing because they left that legacy for me. I can literally go back and learn from them how to yodel. So I will do it eventually. It's going to be a thing.
So when we do round 2 of this podcast for you in a year in the future, you should know that the very first request is going to be that we start with a yodel. Right. Yeah. So we're in. That is a great legacy, and it's certainly a unique skill. And I'm already uncovering things that I didn't know about you, and I'm pretty excited about that.
I warned you.
You did. So as you go through school and you have these streams of things that are important to you, the music as its integration into your life, this desire to be on stage. What does that look like? How does it manifest as you come out of high school, go to college? Did you jump right into that stuff, or did you go a totally different direction?
I did jump into it in a lot of ways. I didn't start playing an instrument seriously probably until the end of high school and early college. I dabbled, there were always instruments around growing up. So, pianos, guitars, zithers, accordions, harmonicas, all those instruments were around, and I toyed with them growing up. But I was interested in being on the stage. So through school, I was in my first play at a church in 4th grade.
Do you remember what role it was?
Oh yeah. I was the lead role. I was fat Jehoshaphat. Yeah. So I stuffed my,
So is there a picture? Is there a picture that we can include in the show notes? Because I'm in.
I'd have to ask my mom. I think there might even be video somewhere.
Oh man.
I'd have to. Yeah, it's in the archives somewhere. But yeah.
So your starring role as fat Jehoshaphat.
Yeah. Yep.
And where did that lead? I assume to some primetime Emmy or.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think I continued that. I found choir in middle school. So I did choir, I did show choir, I did competition choir all through high school. And I played sports too. So it was a weird dual role. I played football through high school. Actually, I started football concurrently. So I started football back in 3rd or 4th grade, played football all the way up until my senior year in high school. And I also was in show choir, which really went over well back in the locker room. It was it was an opportunity to rib me.
Yeah, I'm sure you didn't hear about that at all, right?
Never. Yeah, I was the singing lineman or something like that. I don't know. So yeah, the thread was there. Music, stage. I did community theater in high school. I took acting classes in college. So there was interest in acting.
Have you done more with that? Did you ever pursue acting in a more serious way?
Not since college.
I found still time.
There is. I wouldn't. I've certainly. There might be a point in my life where I want to get involved in that again for fun. But yeah.
What caused you to not pursue that? Was it just that you said, "Hey, I've got other things that are more important"? Was it you got distracted?
No. It was. I really got more into the music side of things once I started playing guitar. I was hooked, and that became really my focus. And just getting better at guitar and wanting to play in bands and be on stage in that way. So I kind of went headlong into that. And
guitar can be like a drug. I hear from so many of my musician friends.
Yeah. Cause it's endless. There's endless possibilities with guitar, particularly electric guitar and effects pedals and all the things that you can do. So, and then my brief career in retail and sales, working for Guitar Center.
Still having music involved.
Still music involved. Yep. After I graduated with my first degree, didn't really know what I wanted to do, and that seemed like a natural step. So music involved. It's been a constant thread.
So then you move on from acting to music. You move to retail with a little bit of music. It sounds like maybe not for super long, but then you said, is that when you became an educator? That's what was that your next step?
I did. I decided that the retail world wasn't for me. And I, in that time I had met my wife, who had become a teacher. And so what I realized is that I had also this thread of working with young people. During college, I was a summer camp counselor out in Colorado for a summer. And I really enjoyed that part, being a mentor and working with young people. And I found that, I had a passion for that. And having a degree in history, I thought, what do you do with a history degree? Lots of things you could do.
Work in retail.
Yeah, that was the logical conclusion. Yeah.
I have a degree in English and history, so I can connect your sales or something.
Yeah.
or higher education. Those are your options, I think.
Yeah, and I did go back and I got my second bachelor's in English and language arts, and so I became a teacher, and I did that for 10 years, working with middle school kids. And I found that really fulfilling on a number of levels. So after that, as technology changed and technology became a more integral part of what we did in education, I got really inspired by how that allowed a change in the way the classroom dynamic worked. And I saw a lot of possibilities and shifts that were going to change the way we approach education. And they have. There's a long way to go, but I was inspired by the technology, and that's where the whole technology integration specialist thing came about.
What's the biggest shift that you've seen, or maybe the most impactful one that you've seen in technology that draws you there?
I think now that anybody can look up anything or learn anything by Googling it, changed everything. If you're a self-motivated person, you can find a way to learn anything, any skill. Just about anything you want to learn can be learned without school. And so that changes the role of what a teacher is. Teachers, and they still do. There's still a traditional side to teaching where teachers are imparting knowledge, but teachers no longer need to do that. We talk about sage on the stage versus guide on the side. And so a teacher, in my mind now, is someone who facilitates learning rather than standing up in front of a class and teaching, because teachers are no longer the holders of the knowledge. And we always had libraries and card catalogs and things like that. But now we have to help direct people towards, and young people towards where do you look for the information that you need? It's a massive shift, and it's not over yet, because the internet,
right?
That's it.
Well, I mean, Moore's law, right? Everything's getting smaller and faster all the time.
All the time.
In that shift, I guess two questions for me come out of that. The first is, do you see that connecting with what you mentioned before, that relationships are everything? So teachers, instead of being this lecturer, you say that they're more of a guide. Is it that it's about that relationship that teachers create, where they're now almost a trusted mentor rather than an information source?
Absolutely. Yeah. Relationships are the number one thing in just about everything, really, but particularly in teaching and working with young people. Absolutely. The relationships. There's another saying that in education, which is students don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so that, yeah, that mentorship thing is massive.
The second question is maybe a bit more of a flyer, but I'm curious, as you've seen this tremendous shift and a spot where now to get knowledge, kids don't necessarily need other people. They need the push of a button. Do you see a spot maybe 20 years from now where schools as they currently exist in person in these groups with these costs and these difficulties of controlling, do they lose their place? Does it become that people
Yeah.
learn more on their own and remotely, even from a young age?
Yeah. I think a brick and mortar school, I think as schools have changed, I think there's still a place. Um, they've shifted though. And, a lot of communities, they've become more and more even community centers, where they're providing a lot of resources. Not all, kids that come to school have come to school with the same resources, as right? Um, and I think you're seeing a lot more um, things like blended learning for older students, where they don't have to be at the brick and mortar every day, but they might come 3 times a week, but they're learning remotely the rest of the time, or they're taking early college courses from online courses that are offered through universities. I mean, I think there's lots of shifts. I don't see a brick and mortar for the youngest students completely going away. But there's lots of people that homeschool, and they have homeschool groups, and they still socialize. I mean, there's a shift. I can't say for certain where it's going, but I think there'll always be a place for that mentorship that traditional teaching has offered. But I think the role of the teacher will continue to shift.
It's pretty fascinating. And as you moved away from your role as an educator and more into technology, when and how did Grove come into play?
Wow. I think really.
And maybe for our audience, what is Grove? I gave
Yeah.
like a 4-second description earlier, but you could give a much better one, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, one of the problems, I think, so Grove is a 24/7 self-service rehearsal studio and recording space. So people can get creative at any time. They don't have to worry about the noise that comes out of the space, because we're in an area where it's not residential. We don't bother anybody. The inspiration for the concept came from, I don't know, probably a good decade and a half of awful experiences in rehearsal spaces, or lack thereof. So going in and out of people's basements, not being able to rehearse late because, neighbors, because kids, because police. And then the spaces that existed were often pretty ramshackle, sketchy, dirty, it cold. I mean, we spent a winter in a garage rehearsing. I mean, there's so many different kinds of spaces, and we eventually got tired of that and said, we think we can build something better. And as technology developed, we realized that not only could we build it better, we could make it affordable, because that was the other problem with rehearsal spaces, was the real estate and how much it costs to store your stuff somewhere where you might only occupy that space 20% of the time, if that. And so you're really just renting storage space that you rehearse in, several times a week. So we thought we'd make something different, and that's what Grove Studios is.
And as you've made something different, what was your dream when you started the company, and has that changed at all?
Yeah, it was much more hyper local when we started. Washtenaw County is, a big creative hub with, 4 different colleges, and a constant refreshing of young creative talent. And we were imagining a small campus of studios, which would compensate for lots of different kinds of creatives, including art, music, and other kinds of arts. And there's other places where people do that work. I mean, there's some local art studios where people are working in different mediums, and we realized that we didn't know enough about those other mediums, because we're the 3 partners, we're all musicians. And so what do we know about starting a multimedia art studio, where people are using kilns and, other equipment that we actually don't know about.
You're not playing the kiln?
No.
That's not your instrument?
No, I'll leave that to those professionals,
That's okay. They probably don't yodel.
Yeah, they might, though. They might. So we went from this hyper-local concept of this, mini campus, to more focusing on music. And as new technologies came available, we realized that we could run these studios remotely with Internet of Things technologies. So Wi-Fi enabled locks, cameras, and automated recording as well, which really started to see some other possibilities. And then, of course, the ability to stream video live, as things like Twitch came on board. It's becoming more and more popular for music. And of course, streaming live to YouTube or Facebook or Instagram. So we thought we can pull all these technologies together and eventually build them all into shipping containers, which is another part of the business that we're looking to scale.
As you look towards this growth, first, I guess, what's been the result? How has the progress going? What's been the reception?
The reception has been great. It's been slow to great, I think, because it's a new concept. Rehearsal and recording studios are typically not self-service. So there's been a learning curve, I think, for people to understand that, I just book online and I get a code and then I just show up, but there's nobody there. I think we've had to do some educating through marketing and through social media to help people understand what it is. And the hourly rehearsal studios, particularly in at least Michigan and the Midwest, unless you go to the larger cities, they're more used to the hourly idea. But people have been just putting up with basements and garages and mediocre to awful kinds of spaces for a long time. So, once we realized that we can use all of these things together, we realized that this can happen in many more places because we're aware of a need there too.
And how do the shipping containers play into that?
That's Breck's fault. That's my no, it's not.
Breck's one of your co-founders.
Yeah, Breck
and Eric, right? Yep.
Breck and Eric. I've played in bands with Eric for many, many years, but I met Breck through a Guitar Center connection. So I was looking for an architect for the hyper-local project that I mentioned, this mini campus, if you will. And we started collaborating. We met on Facebook. We started meeting at a local brewery and talking about the idea of this local mini campus. And we started out with, kind of talking about traditional sort of building scenarios. But Breck's super innovative and quickly came to modular construction. And we went from modular construction to repurposing shipping containers. And he actually specializes in shipping container construction. So we realized that was a good fit from a cost standpoint, a sustainability standpoint, and a scalability standpoint. And so we've been moving in that direction ever since to build all of this into shipping containers.
Seems to be a very unique approach to it. As a musician, what's the benefit to me to going to a practice studio that's in a shipping container, or is it pretty much the same as going in a building? It just has benefits for the business. Which way does that work?
The biggest benefit as a musician would be the sound isolation possibilities. So in a traditional stick construction building, while you can build multiple studios, you can go into a warehouse and build multiple studios inside, they're still all connected within the same building. The shipping containers, I'm going to get this wrong. They're not a 1/4 inch thick of steel. I think they're a little bit less than that, but it's thick steel. And you can sound treat the inside and let some sound escape in these sort of sound ports. But really the sound isolation from unit to unit is going to be greater than in a traditional stick building. So that's the first thing out of the gate. The space, when you put two 20-foot shipping containers together, you get 320 square feet. That's a good amount of space for a band to work in. And there are 1.5 million shipping containers sitting around ports in the United States. They keep coming from China. No sign of them slowing down. And so we have virtually unlimited building materials.
Plus, it's just cool, right?
Yeah, people get excited about it. I mean, it's a very sexy thing right now. It's a very hip thing. It's just also really practical.
It's nice when the hip, cool, fun things are also super practical, right?
Yeah, that's what
that's a good marriage of that. A question you've said several times: relationships are everything. Relationships are the most important thing. And then you talk about this hands-off remote business with nobody involved. So how do you're running a business that would externally at least seem not to be about relationships, and have a personal fundamental belief that relationships are most important. How do you bridge that gap?
That's a great question. Yeah, it would seem counterintuitive that we would do it that way. When bands are going in, and artists and DJs and, producers and engineers, when they're going to the studio to get work done, they typically don't have a lot of time to socialize and hang out. And there's a little bit of that happens as people come in and out of the spaces. There's some commingling of artists and everything as they run into each other in the halls and that sort of thing. But they're typically going there. They have a limited amount of time. A lot of people, they're going in for 2, maybe 4 hours. They have to, quickly, set up, sound check, get started, and then they might have to move on to whatever they're doing next. So where we find the biggest community is in supporting live music events and just really getting out there and supporting what the people are all working towards. So, we do a lot of running into people online. A lot of communication happens with us online as we share what our clients are doing as they release music, as they release videos. We share that online. We do have events at the studio, so little mini workshops around music business, songwriting. We've had luthier come in. Luthier is a guitar repair specialist. We have performance events at the studio. So we do a lot of things around community, but the daily work that goes on, it's really about providing the space and the amenities for the artists. So I don't think those two are juxtaposed at all, but yeah, I can see how at the outset it would seem that way, right?
I think it's a great clarification, and externally it might seem that way, but what I hear you saying and what I've seen you do is that you're building a community. The functional part of the practicing is easy, simple, and efficient, like they want it to be. Like as a musician, I would want it to be, but you also have this chance to connect into a community that allows you to build and grow your business, your brand, your support, and let you know that someone's there that's got your back as well. And that's where the relationship comes from. Is that pretty fair?
I think that's completely accurate. And one of the ways, I mean, we support the community that we're in now and communities that we'll be in the future. In doing those things, right? Supporting shows, sponsoring stages, being involved in the performance aspect of it, but also the accessibility and the affordability. When you're a young artist, you're a young, 18, 19, young 20 something. I mean, I think we all remember when we were that age, and probably, I certainly had a lot less resources at that point. I didn't have access to a great PA system or even a great amplifier or microphones. I mean, all of those things, it's incredibly expensive to be a musician and have quality equipment to prepare yourself for larger stages where you're going to be working with professional equipment. And so by not staffing the studio, we're actually making it more accessible. I mean, artists can get in for as little as $10 an hour.
That sounds really affordable.
It's
for what
Yeah.
you're providing, and you're providing a place, a warm, controlled, secure place. You're providing a community support mechanisms, equipment, all of that. It sounds like all that you're left needing is the brand buy-in from the bigger brands to give you guys a bunch of equipment and a couple of investors, and you're ready to blow up around the world. Is that how it is?
That's exactly it. That's exactly right. Yeah, I think we can be that platform to support artists in a way that not many other people are able to do.
Right. And you, if you plan it well and you've validated now the need and the excitement around it, you've built support in the community, and knowing that you can then replicate that and go do it in these smaller and larger communities around the country and the world has got to give you a significant amount of hope. What has that changing vision felt like, and what has that changing vision meant to you?
Well, it's incredibly exciting to see it work in a community that you're very familiar with, and knowing that there are many other communities like ours that have the same challenges and really similar needs. And we've gotten a lot of feedback recently. We just sent out a survey, and it's been exciting to see the responses. Obviously, we've learned some things, and people make suggestions, and we obviously welcome that all the time. But the vast majority of the people that responded to the survey they're thanking us. And it's such an incredible feeling to just, somebody's grateful that we're doing this. And that just makes me even more grateful that we're able to do this for people. We believe that music makes the world a better place, and music provides a soundtrack to our lives. And I think we all, whether you're a musician or not, have these songs and these experiences with music throughout your life. And music enriches our lives in so many ways. And by making it accessible to this next generation of artists, we can actually support more of that being created, and providing ways for people to make a living doing what they love, and just bringing more music into the world. It's exciting when I think about that at scale, because the digital revolution in music really made music folk music again. Where everybody has access to it. Everybody can, if they're interested in doing it, they can do it. Even if they're not going to do it as a profession, they can do it as a hobby. They can put their music out there. They can share it with their friends, their families. They can share it with the world. Being a platform that allows people to do that in a more accessible way without having to invest in thousands and thousands of dollars of equipment it's bringing more music into the world for all of us to enjoy. That's what I get excited about when I think about the scale of it.
Right. I'm super excited about it as well. And I believe that you have a foundation to do tremendous things. Of course, I'm passionate about helping creatives enter the world and run profitable businesses while pursuing their dreams. So I'm absolutely all on board. Speaking of running a profitable business, has starting or running a company been different than you thought it would be?
Yes, I would say so. Turns out it's a lot harder than it looks. And that's probably no shock to anybody that, has been in the business world for a long time. I never thought it was easy, or I never thought it was going to be easy, but there are so many more factors to running a business, especially, scrappy bootstrapping startups. And we've learned a lot in the last few years about what to do, what not to do. But yeah, it's 100% harder than it looks from afar.
I think that's a pretty common theme.
Yeah.
What would you say? You said you've learned so many lessons. What are one or two of the biggest lessons you've learned along the way?
I think at the outset, I'm always pretty self-reflective about what I call gaps in skill. I think having some self-awareness around the skills that you lack or are not as strong on, and figuring out how to quickly either develop the skills that you need, or figuring out how to get somebody else involved that already has those skills that can add to the team. And doing that obviously on a shoestring budget is really hard to do, and you have to get creative. You have to barter sometimes, and then that's okay. But I think that's the biggest thing: figuring out where those gaps are, and then quickly addressing them in an efficient way. That's one of the big lessons I've learned, I think.
Yeah, we enter it with this fire and this passion and this desire and this vision, and in some ways we're almost, I find in many cases, blinded by it, and then we get hit upside the head with, wait, you didn't actually know how to do this part over here, and that self-awareness is pretty crucial because reality can be painful when it smacks you like that.
Absolutely. Well, it reminds me of our first meeting or meetings together when I think you gave us some of those pointers of reality, and we went, gosh, Dan's right.
I feel like that needs to be your quote card for our episode. For many of you who listen know that we share quote cards from our audience, and I like the one with your picture that just says Dan's right. That's pretty. Oh, yeah. pretty can we just share that everywhere? That'd be great.
That's right. You've been right. You've been right a lot. It's great.
I appreciate that, man. I do, and I'm fortunate to have learned some things now. There's still so much I don't know. Unfortunately, I learned them by being wrong first. I haven't learned a lot of things the easy way, and I know that it's easy to share some of that pain. Speaking of these lessons, right? What's something that, like, if you were to take one thing and say, I wish I'd known that when I started, what would it be?
I think, boy, really I hate to bring it down to this, but at the same time, it is a reality. I think sometimes the amount of money that you think you need to start a business and what you actually need, or there's a disparity between the two, and knowing and having a better plan for that. It's not that we didn't have a plan. But there certainly were stark realizations, and in some ways it was some of the costs that eventually came up later, where You needed to put in place some certain automations or software, or, those things can sort of nickel and dime things, and that can start to eat into your bottom line pretty quickly. And so that was the biggest thing. The overall amount.
You wish you'd had that real
startup costs.
All right. You wish you had that realistic financial planning up front.
Yeah, I think we weren't as realistic. And I will say this in particular, our biggest, and this is having talked to marketing people, this is no shock to them at all, but we were overconfident about how much word of mouth.
Right. It'll spread like wildfire.
And interestingly, word of mouth from our survey is one of the primary drivers of people discovering us. But that didn't happen fast. We're 2 years in.
Right.
People are saying that in a survey. It didn't happen as fast as we thought, and we didn't put enough behind Facebook and Instagram, for example. And as soon as we started doing that, that is the best, as Gary Vee says, underpriced attention that you can get by doing paid ads on Facebook and Instagram has been really amazing.
And part of that, in my experience, is that people need to see, hear, experience something 8 times before they're motivated to take action. Yeah. So if you get word of mouth, maybe that covers 1 or 2 of those, but that's the time component, right? That's the 2 years, is that it takes time to build. And I think when a new entrepreneur, and I certainly was this glassy-eyed as I started this company, Leaders Must Lead, a new entrepreneur, in their mind, they're like, this is a great idea. I know it. I've connected with it. People are absolutely going to love it. And they expect that everyone will get it in the same way they do and just move right along with them without recognizing that you got to build that over time, right?
Absolutely. And you have to hit it on so many different fronts. It's not, it's a multifaceted excursion, so to speak.
If you were giving feedback to maybe a new entrepreneur or one who's considering becoming an entrepreneur, what would you say is the most important characteristic that they should have if they're going to be successful?
I don't think that I can nail down just one thing.
You can give a couple, maybe not 10 though.
No, I won't give you 10, but I think I'm going to maybe overreach, and I won't talk about each one because I think some of them are obvious, but I think patience, empathy, humility, and vision are the critical things. I think without, your willingness to do the first 3, it's going to affect the 4th, which is the vision. Yeah, I think you'll never achieve the vision if you can't be patient, because everything doesn't happen fast. And I think you have to have empathy, particularly for the people, if you have co-founders, for example, to have empathy for their situations and what they're working on and what they're working through, and the humility to understand that there are certainly going to be people who are going to bring skills to the table, and understanding that getting the smartest people in the room is the goal. So you have to just, I didn't struggle with the humility part. I was pretty aware of my gaps in skill, but I found that continuing to be humble is important.
Yeah. One thing I find is that you're either going to be humble or you're going to be humbled. And it's gonna happen.
That's a good one. Yeah,
I think I've lived on both sides of that fence at different points in my life. It's coming one way or another.
Absolutely.
I love that you talk about the importance of being patient. And there's a difference between eagerness and impatience. And so many entrepreneurs are very impatient. They say, we through our vision, through the passion about our vision, we get to where we feel like it should happen now. Why isn't it happening? I've done the work. It should be going on.
Right.
But eagerness is more of, what can I do to help it happen? It loses the entitlement. And eagerness is healthy, because eagerness is about improving and helping other people and having that empathy. And impatience is self-centered and entitling in many cases. So moving that from an unhealthy to a healthy spot is a great gut check for a new entrepreneur. I think that's a wonderful call out.
Yeah, I like the distinction between eagerness and impatience too. I'm certainly eager on a daily basis to get things done, but I am not impatient at this point. I know that
I love the at this point.
Yeah.
Right. We have all had those periods. Are there any particular resources that have made, like, whether it be books, podcasts, whatever it may be, that have made it easier to chase your dreams?
Yeah, absolutely. I think number one is having a coach or a mentor, or multiple mentors. And I've been really fortunate that we met you early on. I mean, you've been an amazing coach and consultant for us, and really helped us move things forward in ways that when we started, we're not quite headed down the right road. And you've helped us with that. I think, and being open to coaching and being open to mentorship, that's huge. So however you can find that, whether it means hiring someone or finding, local organizations. We've been incredibly fortunate with Spark East here in Ypsi. There's also a Spark in Ann Arbor. We've met some great people through that. That's a business accelerator that have helped to mentor us and coach us as well. And then read and listen to podcasts, read and listen to audiobooks. Your podcast is fantastic. Love listening to it. Get a ton of value hearing the threads of all the different people and their different walks of life and their different passions and how they've navigated what we're navigating. And then there's some other people that I, gravitated towards early on. People either love him or hate him, but Gary Vee is someone that I like his approach. I listened to Simon Sinek was another one, the Start With Why. Extreme Ownership was another great book that you recommended by Jocko Willink. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team was an awesome read for me, particularly as somebody that's leading a team. And The Power of Moments was also one that I recently read. Another recommendation by you, by the way.
Yeah, leaders are readers. I love connecting and learning, and I also love being able to share things that are appropriate for people in their space. Those are great book of recommendations, and everyone that you listed is on my Kindle and my Audible account. So I enjoy that, and I appreciate the kind words as well. I've loved working with you guys, and I would truly reinforce: find your coach, find your connection, find your mentor, find the one that's right for you. That perspective from outside of your own 4 walls, and maybe more importantly, outside the square inches of your head, is it can be helpful, right? And
yes.
It's not magic, but objectivity is pretty powerful.
It's super powerful, and I think maybe some of my work as an educator prepared me for that. There's a growing movement in education for instructional coaching. School districts are hiring instructional coaches, and in some ways that's something that I've been doing in as a technology integration specialist, is not just how do you use the technology, but how do you use the technology effectively for learning. And I think I felt more receptive to coaching. I think you just have to make sure that you are receptive to it, because a coach is going to tell you things maybe sometimes that aren't as pleasant. They're not there to inflate your ego, but give you maybe some reality checks. And those are hard moments sometimes, but they're growth moments. And that's what you need to be successful is, recognition. Oh, maybe I failed here, but now that I know differently, I can approach that in a way that's going to move us forward. So coaching, yes.
Always moving forward is such a powerful and important mindset, right? Just keep moving. Great resources, great story, and it all kind of ties together into this idea of chasing your dreams. What does dreams are real mean to you?
I think dreams are real because I think if you put the work in, um, I think you can really achieve anything that you set your mind to. And I think that might sound cliche, um, but I absolutely believe that it's true. I mean, I think if you would have asked any one of my high school teachers, for example, they might have questioned whether or not I was going to be successful, because I was, as a teenager, I was a bit rebellious and a bit anti as establishment, so to speak. I don't know. I definitely had a streak of anarchy, I think. And I didn't particularly back then. I was good at school. I didn't always see the value in it. And I don't know that I would have ended up in the same place had I not discovered and failed and done things on my own. But I didn't dream that I would be uh, a business owner someday. Um, it didn't come until later. And I think your dreams change as life goes on. But I did have a dream of being educated. And so I worked hard and I got the education that I wanted at the time. Um, I wanted to keep growing. I wanted to achieve big things. Um, they're absolutely real. I mean, walking into a pitch competition and winning $5,000, that was a pivotal, dream kind of moment. But all of it result of hard work. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm actually answering the question.
I think you did. I think it's easy in a sense to get lost in our pursuit of a dream when it resonates with us so strongly. And I would suggest also, and you've touched on this a couple of times today, but to call it out directly, that when you're pursuing a dream with other people that have your back, that it makes them that much more real. And for you to work with great guys like Eric and Breck is something that not everyone has the opportunity to do. You guys have a diverse set of skills, but also great support, great personality, great work, and a level of integrity and passion that bonds you together that seems to increase the likelihood of those dreams becoming real as well when you have people around you like that.
Absolutely. I couldn't do this without the skill sets that they bring to the table. And certainly your coaching and your involvement as a critical part of our team. Yeah. And it goes back to my early thinking around collaboration. We're kind of all in the same band together, and that's my connection to it. Right.
Right.
I tie it back to music all the time.
So as you tie that back to music and you think about, you wanted to be on stage, music was important. You're certainly doing both of those things now. Here you are on a version of a stage. We're talking about music. You're doing it in different formats and different ways than it's really been done before. As you think about that, and as other people might look at you and say, wow, here's a guy who went through a bunch of different maybe career options, but knew a little bit of what he wanted to be as a kid, and he's living it. Well, how do you feel when others cite you as an example that dreams are real?
I think it's an incredible feeling. I don't often take the time to kind of encapsulate all of the sort of the trajectory of from my youngest days. But it feels pretty incredible to to look back, right, over the course of 40 years, and see where those threads in your life and some of those passions in your life have taken you. And what's exciting is that we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or next week necessarily, but I think playing the long game of life and not being impatient about what's next has been really powerful to achieving those dreams. I don't think I would have been ready to do this when I was 23. I don't think I would have been ready for my own dreams
Right.
At that point. I think, it feels incredible. If people look at me and say dreams are real, that'd be an amazing feeling if that indeed is where I get placed in the pantheon of history.
Well, I can tell you that it is happening, and that's a fantastic thing. I'm glad to be able to share your story in that way. And that really brings us to our fortunate five. We're talking about being fortunate in all the things maybe you're placing in the pantheon. In addition, we have other ways that we're fortunate. The questions that we ask everybody about things that have happened, things that are going to happen, things in the world. Number one, what's the most exciting or adventurous thing that you've ever done?
I can't point to exactly one thing. I think I've done a lot of exciting things. I've been really fortunate to have some parents who just worked their faces off for us 5 kids, that we got to have some opportunities. Like I mentioned, my mom's been a nurse all her life, and my dad was a truck mechanic who later ran a marina. But we growing up snowboarding and skiing in Colorado, being able to, when my dad worked for the marina for many years, I was also a water skier. So these sort of quote unquote extreme sports, I have a history of BMX, BMX biking, riding four-wheelers, full blast down a river, frozen river in the middle of the winter, sliding around sideways. I mean, I've had a lot of pretty incredible experiences in that way. I don't know that I could point to any one thing. I'm really just fortunate.
That's all right. I think you just pointed to 7 or 8, and they all sound pretty cool. So
I've done a lot of really cool stuff. I'm really lucky.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm super lucky.
So you've done a lot of cool stuff. What's something that you wish you were good at but aren't yet?
I wish I was good at songwriting, and I wish I was better at guitar. Despite the fact that I've been playing for many, many years, I'd like to be able to put a little more time, take some lessons eventually, and just brush those chops up. I just want to be a better musician on the side, because I don't golf.
Well, that's good, because I think there are only so many expensive hobbies one person can pursue, right?
Music can certainly be an expensive hobby.
At least you know where you can practice.
That's right. I know where I can practice, and fortunately, in one of the current groups I'm playing in, we actually make money doing it. So,
it's a beautiful thing. So now hobby becomes a second side gig. That's a beautiful thing.
It is.
What is the best meal or food experience that you've ever had?
Anytime I'm eating is a great food experience. And as you know, I find good food everywhere. But this is maybe sort of random. I was in Janesville, Wisconsin. Most people don't know where that is. I was at a restaurant called Lark. It was this nice little restaurant down in the Main Street, old kind of Main Street area. And I had this short rib that just blew my mind. It was literally like one of the best things I've ever eaten. I don't know what it was. And it was also memorable because the waiter at the end of the short rib came back and said, how'd you enjoy the short rib? Kudos, amazing. Had this amazing glass of wine. I was there for work and technology, and he said, "You might want to get going though pretty soon." And I thought that was an odd thing to say. He said, "Well, one of the local politicians, Paul Ryan, is walking in with his entourage right now," and I saw the Secret Service guy come in, and so there was this. I just had this fantastic meal, and then I thought, "Oh, that's really strange. What's Paul Ryan doing here?" Turns out it's his hometown. I had no idea I was in Paul Ryan's hometown.
What a coincidence. And of course, he probably had the same short rib you did.
Hey, he should have if he knew it was good for him.
I love a good short rib, and I'm really hungry now. So
I know, right? Doesn't that sound amazing?
It does. I think I may need to head over to Wisconsin at some point soon. I know there are a couple. We have a few audience members that I'm connected with there, and they would probably be happy if I went up there, maybe did a little event, got some short rib. Now they know how to lure me out there.
Yeah, Lark right. Is the restaurant in Janesville, Wisconsin.
I am on it. Where's a dream travel destination for you? Where's somewhere that you haven't been that you really want to go?
I have some Spanish and Portuguese heritage, and I really would love to go to Spain or Portugal. Right down there, right, in the south where it's nice and warm, and check out the food and the wine and the just the beauty of the Mediterranean. I think that'd be amazing.
Sounds like a pretty incredible adventure and journey, and I'm sure they have some music too. So we call it a work trip, and we'll make it a day.
Yeah.
What do you hope or believe will be the most exciting invention of the next 30 years?
I think commercial space travel is something that will happen eventually. I don't know how soon. I think we're seeing some of the early attempts, and the fact that Elon Musk is re-landing rockets that used to just be trash after they were done is a pretty bold step. But I could see moon travel happening eventually. I think it's not unrealistic, given what I've seen. I didn't think I was going to be carrying a computer in my pocket, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, that was more powerful than the computers that sent the first mission to the moon. So given that I'm carrying something more powerful in my pocket right now, I'm pretty sure that we're going to be able to do commercial space flight at some point.
Sounds pretty fun. And our mutual friend and previous podcast guest, Dan Zahner, is working on Mars habitat. So maybe in the future, your biggest adventure will be traveling out to Mars to live in a habitat he helped create.
I'm in. Absolutely in.
You can go play some music on they're going to need a place to practice their music there too, right?
Grove Studios, Mars.
Grove Mars. Absolutely. We're on it. Is there a certain thought or message that you would like to leave with our audience as we wrap up?
I guess I would. I think all of this that we've talked about, I think, centers around the idea that lifelong learning is an exciting thing. Never stopping learning new things, new skills, new habits, understanding new perspectives. In the education world, it's maybe a little cliche to say that we want all of our students to be a lifelong learner, but it's so true, because I think that's where happiness ultimately comes from, and being flexible to change and how the world changes around us, and finding ways to become a part of that. I think happiness can be found.
Beautiful. How can our audience find you? What are you working on they should know about? Where can they connect with you?
Well, most of my friends know that my brain is pretty much connected directly to the internet. So I'm on all social platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, grovestudios.space. I think that might be all, but that's that's where we're at. We're out there. Oh, LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn too, of course. Yeah, my name is the name. I don't have any fancy names. I am Rick Coughlin on Twitter. I'm also Mr. Coughlin on Twitter too. I have actually two profiles, one for my education life and then one personal, which is a strange thing. Sometimes people think, why do you have two Twitter profiles? I lead a dual life.
All right. Are you also Batman?
I'm not that cool and not that rich.
not there yet, right? We will link to those connections if you guys aren't connected with them, especially if you're a musician or in the music world. Rick and his co-founders and Grove in general are a wonderful community, not just locally, even though their brick and mortar space is local, but the vibe that they're sending out into the world is a much broader message. You should follow them. You'll see as they continue to grow and maybe end up with a space near you, or how you can jump in and help out and give feedback. That would be a wonderful thing. Rick and his team are great guys doing good things in the world. Rick, thanks so much for being with us.
This has been a blast, Dan. It's good to see you and hear you, as always.
You as well. Until next time. Thank you for joining us on the Dreams Are Real podcast. If anything we've said has inspired you to dream bigger, live more boldly, or move closer to your ideal life, please reach out and let us know, and also be sure to share this episode with a friend. We would be honored if you would like, subscribe, and leave a review for our show on your favorite podcasting platform. And for more discussion of this episode and all things related to the Dreams Are Real podcast, and to receive your free download of Dan's Defining Your North Star training, please join our Dreams Are Real community on Facebook. Until next time, be amazing and keep crushing it.